Captain Jaffa's orange grows. Microchips is us. iPhone cameras us. Taco salads us. Dodon's us. Olive Garden us. White phosphor us. Sabra Hamas. Hasbara sus.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bad Hasbara,
the world's most moral podcast.
My name is Matt Lieb. I will be your host for this podcast.
And I'm the other guy who does the same thing, but from a different coast.
That's right. The coast with the most, I say. What? Shout out to everyone out there on the internet. Whether you're listening or watching, we thank you. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on one of the podcast apps, subscribe. Either way, you're awesome, and we love you. If you are watching right now, you may notice that I have someone sitting next to me, which kind of ruins the whole thing where I spend, 10 minutes with Daniel just talking about nothing while our guest waits at the bottom of the screen in another room. No, instead, she's right next to me. So I'm just going to introduce her straight away. It's the world's most moral guest, friend of the pod, coolest person I know. Simone Zimmerman is here. Hey, what's up?
I just have to say that song goes so hard.
It goes so hard.
Really harder than it needs to.
Yeah, I think I kind of peaked with the song. Like, this podcast opens really strong, and then we start talking, and then it really just goes to shit.
The minute we stop rapping
Okay, but not to be really, really earnest with you guys, though, but I actually have done a couple of talks around the country recently where like random people come up to me and ask me if I listen to this podcast.
What?
And tell me how much they love it and how much it makes them feel less alone and less insane. So,
well,
I think we're going to keep going hard.
that makes me feel good. I love that.
Shout out to people listening who have told me that recently.
That's so sweet.
It's very nice. Although, what you should say is like, I've been on. Do you listen to it? And then just be like, I'm better than you.
That's true. But I'm earnest, so I don't do that. You might do that.
I love making people feel small. It is my favorite thing, mostly just through my height. I'm a very nice person, but I do like to stand next to people, like right next to them, so that they can just feel the height radiating off of my body.
I'm actually a little nervous, guys, because
why?
Well, I started out in the chair that Simone is currently sitting in, and look what happened. You took me aboard as your co-host pretty soon afterwards, and last time you had a guest in there in person. She's already your wife.
She was my wife. That's right. That's how she became my wife.
I'm starting to feel a little bit like my position might be a little precarious.
Oh man, you're going to start holding signs that say Jews will not replace us, but just talking about specifically Simone. Don't worry.
That Jew will not replace this Jew.
Singular Jew will not replace, not all.
But you know what? If she does, it's well-deserved.
Listen, no comment. I cannot disclose my plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't know what she might, she's got some of that trickery up her sleeve. We don't know what kind of tricks. Simone, thank you for...
I am a Jew after all, so I do have to bring my tricks with me.
I was heavily implying it, and I'm glad you said it out loud. That's what kind of podcast this is. Shout out to the ADL for sponsoring this podcast.
Notice how their new slogan is, it's not even never again is now. It's just never is now. Never is now?
That's it. They got rid of again?
Yeah.
It's like, if not now, then never.
If not now, then never. That's beautiful. I love it. They just took on...
They're not going to solve anti-Semitism. That's the point.
Yeah.
Never
keep giving them your money, and maybe one day.
Yeah. It's a very useful thing to do, to give your money to that organization that is going to continue spreading anti-Semitism. No, not never is not now ever, dude. That sentence gave me a stroke, Adam.
Shout out to producer Adam Levin giving Matt strokes.
Mini strokes. Before we go on, I do want to say, please, if you are in Sacramento, come out to the Sacramento Punchline Sunday, March 16th at 7 p.m. My wife and I, Francesca Fiorentini, will be at that comedy club co-headlining. And if you're like, hey, that's too far away from me, but I'm in San Francisco, come to Cobb's May 7th. Francesca and I are also co-headlining there. Ticket link in bio. And finally, the sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Mercy Corps. Core? I like corpse.
Yeah. Mercy Corps.
Mercy Corps. That's what we call Jesus.
Yeah.
The most famous Mercy Corps. For more than 3 decades, Mercy Corps has worked in the West Bank and Gaza, meeting critical humanitarian needs. Their programs help communities cope with crisis, supporting marginalized and vulnerable youth, and increasing economic opportunities. You can donate right now to mercycorps.org. That's mercycorps.org. That's mercycorps.org. Do it. And then also patreon.com/badhasbara if you want to get extra episodes. Daniel, what's the spin?
I got some in memoriam related spins.
Who died?
Today. We lost Roberta Flack recently.
Oh, who's that?
She of Killing Me Softly and I Will Survive too, right? No, it was Gloria Gaynor. Killing Me Softly, and she did a lot of work with Donny Hathaway. Sorry, okay. Wonderful singer, songwriter, and all that. So I got her here.
R.I.P.
Angie Stone, another R&B legend, recently died. She has a couple of co-writes with on this D'Angelo album.
Oh shit, D'Angelo.
To be clear, D'Angelo still alive, but Angie Stone, rest in peace.
Yeah. I love D'Angelo. I like that Untitled music video where he shows his what do you call them? Cum gutters or whatever. Like the D'Angelos,
his
those
ab line.
Yeah. It's just like right down to where the groin is.
But related to that, on a later album, he has a great lyric. What is it exactly? He says something about if you're asking about what shape I'm in, I hope it ain't my abdomen you're referring to.
Oh man!
So he's calling out people like you that
objectifying him. Oh man, yeah. I'm sorry, D'Angelo.
That's all right.
How does it feel? All right, I'm sorry.
Was the name George Lowe, the voice of Space Ghost, Coast to Coast on Adult Swim, just died? And this album, Danger Mouse, and MF Doom is full of guest appearances by Adult Swim voice performers, including him.
Oh.
The Aqua Teen Hunger Force guys and him. Anyway, so shout out to him. And then Gene Hackman. That's right. I'm like, I don't have any of Gene Hackman's albums. But I do have
albums.
No, he did not. I do have Metallica's album that has Unforgiven on it.
Oh, and he was in that.
He was in the movie Unforgiven, no relation. And then also I remembered that Method Man on a verse from this Capadonna album has a line, "Night vision unseen like Gene, when I hack men, they're unforgiven."
Wow.
So there you go. A bit of a stretch, but
I love it.
Bunch of rests and pieces there.
So that's what the spin is. And now, finally, it is time to start the podcast. Simone Zimmerman is here. Just wonderful to have you in studio. What are you doing here in sunny Los Angeles? And by
what are you doing in Matt's house?
Yeah, why are you in my house? Why are you here?
It's my mom's birthday this weekend.
Aww.
Came to hang.
I love that.
Yeah.
You love your mom.
I do.
That's actually a very normal reason to go back to LA.
Totally.
And not because it's like pilot season and you're just like, oh, I'm up for the sitcom role.
Yes, despite what many of the haters might think. I do love my mom and we do celebrate her birthday together.
That's right. I'm sure the haters, like, number one thing they say to you is, your mom must be so ashamed of you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, she's not, I think, right?
Mostly not. Yeah.
Hell yeah, mostly not. That's as good as you're going to get with most, relationships with mothers.
Definitely.
Yeah. Daniel, what does your mother think about you?
Oh, she loves him. Shout out to Daniel's mom.
Yeah, my mom's a big fan of me.
Really?
Yeah.
Despite everything.
Well, she's also...
Not despite everything, because of everything.
Because of everything. Wow, yeah. It's a tolerant mom. Where were we? Oh, yeah.
You were talking about my mother.
That's right. I was talking about your mother.
I've hung out with Daniel's mom, so I can also just attest that she's extremely cool and on side.
Yeah, because you did a bunch of Israelism events with my dad in Vancouver, right?
Yeah. Shout out to the entire Mate family.
Nice.
I'd say that the Mate family likes you, Matt. They love Simone.
Oh, they only just like me?
I'm here to replace everybody today.
This fucking sucks. Here's the thing. I feel like I've been waiting for a long time to someday meet the rest of Daniel's family. I've met Aaron. We
Yes.
did Hanukkah together.
Yeah, the night I met you, Aaron was also there.
That's right. And then, I'm still, waiting on a phone call back from your father, the good Dr. Gabor.
Mm-hmm.
And, meanwhile, you have a sister, you have a mother. Why don't they?
I've met all of them.
You've met all of them. That's not fair. What do they think? Like, part of me, when I imagine like Daniel's like family get-togethers and stuff, at some point someone's going to be like, so you're still doing your little podcast? Like,
my dad listens to every episode. I wouldn't say religiously, but reliably. I get more episodes than not. I get a message from him being like, that was a great guest, or I couldn't believe that article that you guys read out loud, or that was a hilarious joke that you or Matt made. Like,
your dad listens. See that?
he does without me even prompting him. He must be a YouTube subscriber.
Now I'm nervous because I say a lot of weird shit on this podcast.
I'm sure he's compiling a document full of, whatever your likely traumas or whatever it is.
I would love a psychological profile of me done by the good Dr. Gabor. That would be sick.
It'll all be you didn't get your emotional needs met in childhood. That's what he says about everybody.
It's true, though. It's true.
I mean, who isn't it true about?
I know. So today, I think a good portion of this episode is going to be about what is going on right now in Hasbara land.
Other topic.
No other topic. There's no other show than this show. I mean, what can you say about the last few days other than it has been beautiful to watch the state of Israel go through all of their $150 million Hasbara budget for 2025 just on talking about no other land winning an Oscar. Like, just the amount of tweets, the amount of like to camera videos, the amount of just like op-eds. It's been really fascinating to watch because I knew they would freak out about it. It was one of the reasons that I hoped the movie would win, was because I was like, this is going to be a wave of content, the likes of which we have never seen before. Now, I have not seen the movie. Daniel, you've seen this movie?
I have seen this movie.
And Simone, have you seen this movie?
Yes.
So
this fits perfectly on brand with who does the homework in this group of
That's
us.
right. I don't have the time to sit around and see whole movies. I just like to collect tweets from people who are mad about things. That's my role in society and on this podcast. But were you guys, Simone, at all surprised by the win? Was this something you were expecting for the Academy to do? Or was it like, wow, I can't believe that they actually, went through with it?
I guess maybe both. I mean, we'll get into it in a bit, but I just was like weeping when they won. I was just so, I didn't think they were going to actually do it.
Yeah.
It just felt like, given this moment and given the industry, that it just would be, they gave them the nomination and like wouldn't give it to them. So I am shocked that they did it actually. And it was pretty sweet to watch them win that award and give those speeches in a room full of people, both people who have felt silenced in Hollywood for so long. I mean, you could hear the applause and the cheers in the audience from all the people who are artists for Ceasefire or whatever beyond that, who are like so happy to see that, get that validation on the stage. And then also to be in a room full of people who have made it their mission over the last year and a half to ensure that Palestinian voices, Palestinian stories do not get airtime in Hollywood. And we know the level of absolutely psychopathic behavior that has accompanied all of that. Like, we know that those people were in the room having to listen to that. And that was pretty delicious, I'll say.
I got to say that for me was probably my favorite thing ever. Because I while I did enjoy watching the kind of catharsis of people like myself and like you and others, and that I'm sure were in the audience, being like, this is amazing. I'm so glad that like, Academy voters didn't like chicken out on like political, being scared of the politics of the whole thing. But watching an audience full of people with, I think it was Noah Colwyn who said, like, just the most practiced poker faces you have ever fucking seen.
Yeah.
With people who are just like, like they couldn't, you know, some didn't want to show elation. Some didn't want to show that they were furious.
Some didn't want to show that they'd ever heard of the place.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, so no other land. All right. Okay.
What land is that?
What land is that? There's a river and there's a sea, some sort of banks. But yeah, I want to play the speech that happened at the Oscar winning speech, which has caused, of course, I mean, the win alone caused controversy, but the speeches themselves really ramped it up. And, you know, it was just like last year with Jonathan Glazer's speech. It was like the speech itself, you know, is what's going to be.
And in this case,
I was actually going to ask, did the podcast exist last year at the Oscars?
It did.
Yes,
Oh,
we
yeah.
did a whole
Yeah.
episode on the Jonathan Glazer win.
Yeah.
And in the case of that speech, he made an unforced error in terms of one sentence construction, where he's like, "We renounce our Judaism being used." You know, like just the way that sentence was constructed left it open to the worst faith attacks. I mean, they would have found a way to attack it anyway.
Right.
But
yeah,
then
I mean,
remember sorry.
Go ahead. No,
and then the responses from, there was that Hollywood letter responding to Jonathan Glazer that was like, not only do we denounce Jonathan Glazer for denouncing his Judaism, like, you can read, there was a full sentence there. But okay. And then they were like, you know, there is no occupation, Jews are indigenous. I mean, they really they went hard on a level of denialism that I was thinking of all those people watching the speech this time, just being like, it must be melting your brain to once again have to watch an Israeli Jew say that he's against supremacy.
Right.
You know?
And watching a Palestinian,
breathing.
Now, breathing, but now award-winning documentary filmmaker,
stand on stage and say we're again calling for people to stop the ethnic cleansing of his village,
right, and
of his people,
saying the word resist, which is something that has pissed off a lot of people. So here is the speech for us all to watch.
Thank you to the Academy for the award. It's such a big honor for the four of us, and everybody supported us for this documentary. About 2 months ago, I became a father, and my hope to my daughter that she will not have to live the same life I'm living now, always fearing settlers' violence, home demolitions, and forest spill displacements that my community, Masafir Yatta, is living and facing every day under the Israeli occupation. No other land reflect the harsh reality that we have been enduring for decades and still persist, as we call on the world to take serious actions to stop the injustice and to stop the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people.
So that was Basil Adra, who is the Palestinian filmmaker and co-director, and this is the other co-director in the duo, an Israeli filmmaker named Yuval Abraham.
And we should say it's actually a quartet of directors.
Oh, there's four directors.
There's
that's
another
right.
Israeli Jew. There's another Palestinian.
Okay.
They're standing with Rachel Shore, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name.
What's the other guy's name?
What is the other one?
Hamdan, I believe.
Hamdan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's Samuel L. Jackson in the background thinking, I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing about settler violence. Some Zionist posted a close-up of Samuel L. Jackson's face, like plausibly cringing and grimacing and shaking his head as Basil was. You can't tell what his expression means, but being like, "Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson's based. He knows what's up.
Yeah.
He knows this is anti-Semitic incitement."
Yes, they've been trying to, basically project all of these like pro-Zionist views onto Samuel L. Jackson. While I'm not, I don't know, I haven't done any research into it, but I can pretty much guarantee that everything he was doing on stage there was just, had almost nothing to do with anything other than just he's on stage and he's making little jokes with people.
I don't know about that. I mean,
you think
Matt,
he's...
what's in your wallet?
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that, like, you know, like the poker faces you saw in the crowd, what I saw was him essentially doing a poker face, just going, okay, well, this is getting spicy.
Yeah.
I mean, and what can you expect from most actors?
We made this film, Palestinians and Israelis, because together our voices are stronger. We see each other. The atrocious destruction of Gaza and its people, which must end. The Israeli hostages brutally taken in the crime of October 7th, which must be freed. When I look at Bassel, I see my brother, but we are unequal. We live in a regime where I am free under civilian law, and Bassel is under military laws that destroy his life and he cannot control. There is a different path, a political solution without ethnic supremacy, with national rights for both of our people. And I have to say, as I am here, the foreign policy in this country is helping to block this path. And, you know, why? Can't you see that we are intertwined? That my people can be truly safe if Bassel's people are truly free and safe? There is another way. It's not too late for life, for the living. There is no other way. Thank you.
So one of the things that I noticed in that and that I really love was the moment when he says, and I have to say, your country, you know, the United States' foreign policy is making it impossible. And that was a line for the crowd that I felt like for them, they were like, well, Trump's president now, so yes, we agree with that.
We all saw what he did to our boy Vladimir on Friday.
Yeah, Volodymyr. Thank you very little. But yeah, no, like straight up, he like the entire crowd
had
permission to agree with the idea that American foreign policy is bad.
Yeah.
You know, now. And for me, I just as much as I'm like, well, good, at least they're doing it now. There's that deep, dark, spiteful part of me that just goes like, none of you mean it. You just hate Trump, and that's. You want to blame Trump for something that you were completely silent about, if not defiantly pro when Biden was in office.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of several things in Yuval's speech that I thought if I could have just tweaked a couple of words or added a couple of words, you know, I would have said U.S. long-standing policy.
Sure.
You know, like for decades, it's not about right now that we have some kind of troublesome fascist dictator who's making it hard to make peace in the Middle East. So maybe we could just touch on this now, maybe come back to it. But I just like watching it again. And Simone, I'm really curious to hear your take. You know Bassel and Yuval personally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're quite connected to that Masafriati community. So I'm sure that this victory affected you on levels that it didn't affect me. Having seen the film and having had my own thoughts about it, I liked it. I was glad it existed. I had my reservations, my critiques, but overall I was like, yes. And I was really happy to see them win. And at the time when I watched the speeches, I was like, okay, they did pretty good. I mean, I don't know how the hell I would, you know, concision is terrible for me. I can't speak concisely.
And that's you.
Much less in a moment like, and that's me.
I'm 10 times worse, so I completely get it.
And you and I are both native English speakers, you know, raised on this continent, not on the Oscars stage with the weight of a million different clashing expectations on us. I can't imagine, like watching it now, my experience watching it, first of all, is just a kind of somatic, I feel the difference between the two of them, and there's the commonality, of course, you know. And Yuval says, "I see my brother when I look at him," and I truly believe that Bassel considers Yuval a trusted friend and collaborator. He made this film with him. I don't agree with some of the takes that are like, "Oh, he's just going along with what the Israeli settler is doing," and you know, like totally robbing Bassel of any agency.
Sure,
there is a kinship there, and at the same time, it's a different thing to watch a Palestinian man stand up there on stage and this is not to judge either of them, but to the nervousness in Basil's voice, but also the strength as he speaks about being a father, to stand as I'm reading Mohammed El-Kurd's book right now, Perfect Victims, and just getting more and more sensitized to how little I can even imagine what it is to try to stand up as a Palestinian human being in front of the Western world on a Western stage like that and state your case and have to humanize yourself in the face of the radical dehumanization that is just part of Palestinians' lot in this world, right?
It's basically the death machine has given you 1 minute to speak. Could you say all of your thoughts concisely, please, and in another language?
Right, and if you and preferably if you could reassure us along the way that you don't hate Jews.
Right, exactly,
and that you understand the difference between. I thought he did a beautiful job. With Yuval, it is more complicated, and I find myself in some moments cheering, and in some moments cringing, and in some moments wishing that it had been a little bit different. The movie ultimately isn't a call for coexistence. It's not a buddy film. Their friendship is laced throughout it, but the awkwardness of it is very much part of it. And credit to Yuval, he goes there, he puts his body on the line, he exhibits a kind of physical and moral bravery that I'm not sure I would exhibit if I was born in his circumstances. He goes right up to soldiers, he gets in their faces, and he allows himself to be filmed with Palestinians saying, "What are you even doing here?" You're going home to your comfy situation on the other side of the green line. But there is something, I think, the collaboration between them, and you can see it on that stage. It raises questions, at least. What are the limits of What are the possibilities of collaboration between colonizer and colonized? What are the limits of collaboration between settler and occupied? Is true collaboration even possible? Is what each of them says compatible with what the other one says? I do wish he hadn't equated the destruction of Gaza with the hostages on October 7th. There's a few moments in there where I'm like, that's going to make it more palatable. And of course you think, well, what would I do if I was in a situation? He's trying to be strategic. Right. Then is it worth it if you start mangling the moral calculus? So it's complicated watching it, and it should be complicated. It's a complicated thing that Israelis and Palestinians made a film together. Co-resistance is a messy thing. And ultimately, I think it's a beautiful thing that it happened and that they won and that they got the opportunity to get up there and do it. I could say more, but Simone, what's your feeling witnessing all of that? Because I know that there's been a lot of discourse.
I kind of want to pick up where you left off, which is with the idea of co-resistance. Yeah. Look, the only thing I really have to say about the content of their speeches is that I would assume that they planned them together. This is a team that works together. I think it is really condescending and patronizing of people to kind of assume that is not the case, that there wasn't an agreed upon message and that, this, arrogant Israeli just came in and said some shit.
Did you see the takes that are I hated how that Israeli took over the speech.
Yeah. It's actually, we just watched it again. Basil stepped aside and then Yuval spoke. And if I had given that speech, I might not have used all of those words. I certainly wouldn't have used all of those words, but I didn't give that speech and I didn't make that film and I'm not Israeli. So I think what I kind of want to talk about is there's an interesting thing that is happening, I would say both in the mainstream and in some of the reactions from parts of the movement that I've seen online to the film, which is critiquing the idea that this film is trying to offer parity. I mean, one of the things that Yuval said in his speech was, we are not equal in this land, right? That he did say our fates are intertwined, and he also said they are not equal, right? And I think that what's important to understand about what is happening in Masafer Yatta is that these are some of the most vulnerable communities in the West Bank. These are communities that live in very rural parts of the West Bank. It's called Area C. This is an area that the Israeli military also has full civilian and military control over, which also means this is also where all the settlements are. And these are Palestinian villages that are experiencing every single day direct violence and threats from the military and from the settlers who work together with the military. This is something that has been going on for decades, the threats against these communities since October 7th. And the film, an interesting thing about the film is that basically all of it was filmed pre-October 7th. And post-October 7th, there have already been completed expulsions, ethnic cleansing of many communities, like the community of Masafer Yatta across the West Bank. I don't have the immediate numbers on me right now, but it's just to say this is a film that is documenting an ethnic cleansing in process, right? And this community is resisting, has chosen that part of their strategy for resisting that ethnic cleansing is to invite Jewish activists to be a protective presence, to literally put their bodies in between the Palestinians in the community and the soldiers and the settlers, coming to everything from like destroy their water tanks, steal their electric generators, kill their livestock, prevent them from grazing on their land, destroying their actual homes. I mean, it's everything, right? And it's and also physically attacking them. And I think that first of all, it should be said that like any Jewish activist who like goes into those communities, the film actually depicts this, right? The limits of this paradigm. The fact that at the end of the day, the Jewish Israelis or the Jewish internationals can leave. This is something where they can dip in and out. And for the Palestinians in the village, that violence is relentless. It never goes away. It's every single second, right? And there are moments in the film where like Yuval is, there's two scenes in particular that I remember. I saw the film a while ago. One is where Yuval is going to go home and they're like, why are you going home? And when are you coming back? Right. And just that, the pain of that moment. And then there's another moment where they say something like, you want this to happen really quickly and it's not going to happen quickly.
Yeah. Basil says that to him straight up. He says, you're impatient because Yuval is thinking like, he's saying, I need to write more about this. My last one didn't get a lot of clicks. Like he's there's a kind of, well, potentially a kind of white savior track in his brain. Maybe it's not that, but there is a kind of from the outside, okay, how are we going to fix this? Meanwhile, the guy who lives and whose family is subject to this is saying to him, this does not happen on your timeline. This does not happen that quickly.
Yeah, you can't expect to come in here and flip the status quo with some, either words that you write or art. That's, I think, an important thing.
Look, and I think that there is a savior complex for a lot of people who come and do that kind of activism. Like and what the actual ask is something that I think almost, I don't want to say none of us, but like very few people I know would be willing to take the kind of physical risks that these activists have been asked to take and do take, right? And again, this highlights like the extreme inequality of Israeli apartheid and settler colonialism, the fact that the death machine and the colonization machine is trained on, it's about elimination of Palestinians and making life so miserable in that place that they leave. And the Jewish activists who come in, like, I'm really not trying to kind of valorize what they do. I am trying to like put some real respect on what they do and the like level of risk they have to take, and that all has been invited and led by the Palestinian residents of Masafer Yatta who have asked these people to come in and be in partnership with them. So it's really not, I think this idea like, oh, it's an Israeli-Palestinian film that shows like we can all live together. No, that's not what it is. It's actually a story about the level of inequality that is built into the apartheid regime, and what does it look like to be somebody who is on the edges outside of that Jewish Zionist consensus, right? People, the activists in that film are radicals who are sitting there, crossing the boundary to go be with the residents of these communities. And again, I think we should, like, part of the point of the film is the fact that the Jews are there doesn't stop it, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Nothing.
they're
No,
the
it
subject
doesn't
of-
stop it, that is an important message. And I wonder how much that message has really made it to, like, the mainstream, right? That was perhaps not the message that was communicated on the stage.
Well, to be fair to everybody, the Zionist and non-Zionist alike, and I don't like to be fair to anybody usually, but there's still no distribution for this film in the United States, so a lot of people haven't seen it, and so it does, to me as someone who has not seen the movie, just based on the kind of discussions about it and the speeches that I saw, that's all I have to go on. So I don't fully blame people for when they hear our fates are intertwined and standing together and whatnot.
Well, especially since the movie's
their immediate
called-
response is hey, is this some sort of coexistence bullshit?
Exactly. Especially since the movie's called No Other Land, which sounds very much like
everything Zionists say all the time.
That's right.
Yes, right.
Neither of us have any other place. And in fact, Haaretz just ran an editorial being like, for Israelis and Palestinians, there is no other land. And in Yuval's speech, he said, there is no other option or no other way or something like that. However, the film itself, which we should, I think, evaluate on its own merits or can or ought to, or we might benefit from evaluating it on its own merits, does not use the title in that way.
Right.
It's not a film about Palestinians and Israelis sitting down next to each other and being like, you know what, we've both been through a lot, we've both suffered a lot. Even if, our fates are intertwined, it's not because, my trauma and your trauma are equal. In fact, it's not even a co-equal statement in the film. It's just what I think Basel's mother or another woman in the village says, we have no other place to go. We have no other land. This is our village.
Yeah. Can you read the Muhammad El-Kurd passage just to inform everyone what we're talking about when we talk about this particular passage that people have been sharing as part of this kind of critique of the movie?
Yeah, and this is just, I don't think this obviates or contradicts anything. In fact, a few pages later, he says, I'm not saying that Palestinians shouldn't work with Westerners. I'm not saying that they shouldn't work with Israelis. But he is asking for some awareness of some of the invisible
be conscious of the dynamic that you're seeing.
Yeah. So he talks, and he's not speaking specifically about this movie because this movie hadn't come out when he wrote the book.
Right.
He's speaking about a genre. Take the genre of Israelis and Palestinians making films together. The Palestinian filmmaker is chaperoned to the film festival, allowed on stage as their authoritative co-signatory's charismatic sidekick. This guy can really write. Mohammed, I mean. No one, not the producer of the festival, not the columnist writing a review, seems to care about the content of the film, whether it is good or garbage. What matters most is that the film was co-directed, a mode that satisfies a libidinal urge in the viewers. I think that's true. I think I think psychologically, emotionally, there's some truth to this, or at least it rings true for
people
me.
like to.
I think that's 100% true. That's true about a lot of how reviewers are talking about this film.
It makes
libidinal, the libidinal part specifically. Like, you think people like swirling? Is that what you're saying? Like, people just like the idea of the Palestinian, and is what do you mean?
I mean that on some libidinal level. I don't mean erotic. But on some level of it feeling good in the body to imagine Jews and Palestinians finally coming together and making art that transcends politics or that points to a better future. I mean, that Haaretz art editorial, which we don't have in front of us, but it says it's sort of like a film, a moment like that on the Oscar stage, a scene like that with those two. They're two young, attractive guys who look like they could be brothers or cousins, right? the inequality for a moment, we can glimpse a possible reality in which the inequality isn't real, and that makes us, speaking of isn't real, and which makes us feel good, and we want to feel good because this conflict makes us feel so bad all the time.
Yes, right.
Right.
El-Kurd continues. Do you want to say something, Simone?
No, I'll say it after you finish.
Okay. They, the viewers, eavesdrop on a forbidden conversation, a titillating reconciliation between the slayer and the slain. Discussions about the film, reviews, the way it is promoted, and our excited elevator pitches to one another all become masturbatory, reducing the film to the fact that it was a collaboration between an Israeli and a Palestinian, fulfilling the viewer's fantasy of a happy ending to an otherwise miserable story, or turn it into a fetish. And they could have done the best possible job. I mean, Yuval's speech could have been flawless, and that would still be true. Right. It's in the background. It's in the subtext of Israeli-Palestinian collaboration on the Oscar stage, and that's I don't think we need to shy away from that, even as we celebrate the victory as a victory, which, from everything I've seen, the people of Massafaryata overwhelmingly are. They chose to embark on this venture. It was done with their participation, with their consent, with their awareness, and with their strategic sign-off that, of course we're going to use the presence of these Israeli filmmakers to get our story out there. We're trying to save our fucking homes. And all of these things are true at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this passage is like, he's 100% spot on about this. We've seen it play out around this film in particular. And I think part of what I was trying to say before is like, I do not believe that that is what the film is about. And that is also not what the Jewish members of the film team, that is not what they are about in this project.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that translates in a film that is actually, like, I actually think the film leaves you feeling heartbroken and outraged, because what you actually see is that none of this is stopping this machine of ethnic cleansing. Like, and you can just feel it. Like, the film ends and you just feel like, I don't know if these villages are going to make it. I don't know if these people are going to survive this thing. And I think I think those of us who have access to these types of spaces should like really question. I mean, this is something I ask myself all the time, obviously, as like a Jewish person who has a voice in the public sphere. Like, we should really question why it is that people want to listen to Jewish voices and Jewish stories, and be really careful about like what that is in service of, and about how we should not make people feel good about this, because there is nothing to feel good about what is happening on the ground right now.
Right.
And that's what I was saying about like, it's like, it's so insulting to whitewash and co-opt the Israeli Jews who are in this project, because they themselves like are people who have had to step very far outside of the consensus in their society, and are paying a real price for it. Their society wants them out, like what it's going to take to get to the thing, what it does take to get to the thing that's being depicted in the film, and what it would take to make that a reality, is the shattering of a Zionist paradigm.
Right.
And
that's true.
Yeah. And I think people like to read into the intent of the film purely based on their read into the intent of the Oscar speech that Yuval gave. So, there's just, it's like a game of telephone where everyone is, based on also, like they'll pull out some tweets and they'll be like, oh, this is, what this is really insidious liberal Zionism. And I haven't seen the movie. I don't know. And I don't know Yuval personally. So it's like, there's no part of me that can claim to know any of this firsthand. But, I think what I will say about all this is, like, I understand why this wasn't a win for some people. I completely understand the kind of generalized critique that Mohammed El-Kurd was making regarding the sort of like green bookery of a lot of this kind of genre, and how often, and usually you see it more so in fiction, like especially in the Israeli film industry, the sort of Tel Avivian movie about two gay men, one Palestinian and one Israeli, and the forbidden love type thing.
6-pointed star-crossed lovers.
Exactly. Exactly. And I haven't seen this movie. I know it's not that, but I understand the kind of the feeling of, people who have described it as crumbs, accepting crumbs, right? And I I get that. I'm not. That's not something for me where I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm in no way mad about that type of critique, because I do see art, especially the way art is celebrated in the West and in LA, as being a useful tool for pacification. People can pat themselves on the back and say, I watched this movie, therefore I don't have to engage with the subject anymore. Or especially in this culture where raising awareness seems to be where everything ends. When it comes to everyone's individual personal activism, it's like, oh, good, I've raised awareness. My work here is done. And I can see being resentful of that.
Yep.
So I get that, but here is where I fall on this is, I think y'all who are maybe more mad about this, you're not petty enough. You need to really embrace the pettiness deep inside of you. I'm a very petty person. So for me, a good portion of this win was me celebrating this win was because I knew of the freakout that it would create. I knew that it attacks Zionists where they're most vulnerable. Matt has full moon fever.
That's a Tom Petty joke.
Oh, okay. I don't listen to enough Tom Petty. Anything.
Adam's such a boomer.
Anything that attacks, I think, where Zionists are most vulnerable, which is like their own self-image, I think is wonderful. I enjoyed watching what I knew would happen if this was, to win, was that people freaking out over not just seeing a perspective that they've been saying out loud, shouting from the rooftops is Hamas propaganda for the last, never mind 16 months, for decades for some of these people. But to see that kind of movie was allowed to win, to see that kind of movie was allowed to be given a platform on one of mainstream entertainment industry's most hallowed nights. I think for them, for Zionists in general, that shit is mortifying, because that is that's all they have is the narrative. The narrative is everything. That's why we do this podcast, is because their narrative is just so flimsy that to just poke at it a little bit and you watch it dissolve in front of you. And yet they have been skating on this narrative of, no, actually the Israelis are the oppressed ones. And we can't even live in certain parts of the West Bank because it's not yet ours.
Sure.
I guess I would say try to enjoy the misery of bad people a little bit more.
Yeah, well, but I'm with you, and by the same token, I can also understand people being past the point where the kind of things that turn us on turn them on anymore.
Of course,
they've seen like even Zionists showing their whole ass and a half is they're over that. And which means that maybe they're not bad Hasbara listeners, or maybe they're only casual listeners.
Sure,
that's all we do here. We live on that shit.
Yes,
we are we drink the Scott Templeton tear. What was his name?
Scott Templeton
from the South Park.
Oh, Scott Tenorman.
Scott Tenorman. We drink Scott Tenorman's tears.
Yeah,
delicious
tears.
And I'm sure for many of these people, I can imagine being at the point where there's no more delight to be had. They're past the point where irony is gonna, or that kind of irony is gonna help. It has no more coping value because the horrors of we're just past that point. So I get that too.
Completely understandable.
I get that too. In which case I would just say, okay, it won an award. It had a moment. I don't think, and I think Simone, you'd agree with me. Award speeches, award ceremonies come and go. The film will remain. The win will increase the chances that it'll get more distribution, or there'll be more curiosity about it. And I don't think anyone I'd be hard pressed to take any argument seriously that would say anyone actually seeing this film is doing themselves any damage. I think this film is. I think this film.
Well, at least anyone who's pro-Palestine.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of emotional damage can be done if you're a Zionist. Am I right?
You're emotionally damaged, Jewishly.
Thank you.
Exactly. I think the film may omit certain larger political analyses. It's very zoomed in. It's very intimate, and I think it's one of its strengths, but also one of its limitations. But I think anyone watching the film, I think more people seeing this film, I would say, it seems to me, it's probably a positive thing.
Yeah.
But I get anyone not being able to full-throatedly celebrate it, or maybe even feeling a twinge what does that even highlight? That in a situation like this with so much inequality, even the wins that are available are exceptions that prove the rule. They are the wins that prove the defeat.
Right.
They may feel like Pyrrhic victories. And
but
I can't say anything to that.
Right. I'm just saying, if you want to attempt to, squeeze out some optimism from any of it, I encourage it. I think it's always better to do that. And I also look at like sort of the counterattacks to the critiques. Like in general, I look at it and I go like, it is okay to let people have their critiques, and it is also okay for you to critique their critiques. There's no problem with it whatsoever. Just try to remain, I guess, grounded in what is who is an ally and who isn't. And also don't take things online, sort of like the hot take machine, too seriously, because it is, I think one of the strengths that I have seen, at least in the, sort of pro-Palestine online movement, has been its ability to kind of squash beef pretty quickly. Like people, Israel has done a really good job of getting people to remain focused. And I think it is, I think we should try to continue in that vein, where it's like, some people are going to have their critiques, and that's fine. And fucking, at the end of the day, fucking my personal belief is my personal belief, and everyone has their own. And mine is that, like, while I don't think that art changes things necessarily, I do think that
only podcasts do that.
I think only podcasts have that ability, especially podcasts with soundboards. But also
that's the sound of freedom ringing out.
Yes. But I do think that, like, the reason I enjoy sort of the freakout is because of the fact that they know that Zionists and Israelis know that so much of their Jewish ethno-state, support is based on American support. And the more that erodes, it's like, anything that erodes that support is just one more crack in the chain. Yeah. And for me, I can only be optimistic when I look at something like that, even if I know that like things like this have happened before.
Well, we love to see the contradictions within Zionism get heightened, don't we? We love seeing Beitar.
We love to see it
beefing with liberal Zionists. We love seeing Hasbarists.
We love seeing Shai versus Beitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we love. Slick. That was great.
Where did you get that?
Where'd I get that? I made it. I make these things. This is my art that will change nothing. We're going to take a quick break, but everyone, please stick around because we will be right back. And we're back. This is Bad Hasbara's world's most moral podcast. I'm here with our most moral guest, Simone Zimmerman. How you doing, Simone?
So good.
So good.
We're feeling so moral.
Hell yeah. Feel moral because we just won an Oscar. Not us at all. I would like to, but no. Instead, it was No Other Land won an Oscar and everyone freaked out. Here's some of my
We just won an Oscar for the best
critique of critiques.
The best delicate dancing around a difficult, thorny subject related to an Oscar ceremony.
That's right. But I want to talk about some of that. We've been teasing these reactions, and I want to show them. At this point, people have already
Can we do some
seen.
Hasbara, please?
Let's do some Hasbara. So first, one of my absolute favorites, probably the MVP of the night, was John Podhoretz, who started off the night with, "So far, this is the best Oscars I think I've ever seen, and I've been watching since 1971." He was definitely naked, alone in his apartment with a tub of ice cream on his chest, and so I can only imagine his shock and horror when he saw that No Other Land won the Oscar. And I love, "Fuck you, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel Hollywood filth," which I think I'm going to turn into my Twitter bio. It's too
That
good.
reminds me of Jordan Peterson's response to when Elmo wished everyone a Ramadan Mubarak, everyone. And Jordan Peterson said,
"Up yours, Hamas scum."
To Elmo.
to Elmo.
Congratulations to Hamas for its Oscar win. I really love, now let's see them destroyed. I love when an old man puts, the word in caps for emphasis. It just brings out the old shriekiness of the tweet.
Yeah.
And then this almost incomprehensible tweet. "Once you won minor movie awards for making Holocaust things. Now it's for anti-Israel things. Thank God the movies are dying." At this point, this guy just renounced movies.
He really switched weed strains throughout the evening. I mean, he really...
Yeah. I mean, whatever he was smoking, it just was getting worse and worse.
He should stick with the sativa. That indica's really not agreeing with him.
Absolutely. And we had
This is the fucking best.
Christopher.
Oh, I haven't even seen this.
Christopher
Fucking
Cuomo.
Fredo.
Yes, Fredo says, so he's replying to Howard Beckett, who I don't know, wrote, "No Other Land wins the Oscar for Best Documentary. The director's called for an end to settler violence," and then everything he's called for.
Yeah, just a little recap of what they talked about in there.
Right. And he goes, "No takeaways about their message about the terrorist group in control of Gaza, the one that instigated this with its atrocities on October 7th.
Instigated what, Chris? The
Instigated
destruction of Mustafa Yatta? That
Instigated.
doesn't make much sense since the film was largely completed before October 7th and about events that have been going on for decades.
Well, how could that
in
be?
the West Bank.
How could that be?
In the West Bank, where Hamas has no control.
Guys,
Okay.
that's literally impossible because October 7th is when this all started. So I don't know.
It's the start of recorded time.
That's right. I loved Emily.
I'm writing
Schrader.
a dissertation on October 7th's influence on the Reformation.
Oh yeah,
and on the French
Protestant-
Revolution and other important historical events that happened before it.
Yeah, October 7th was the beginning of the Protestant Church. Everyone knows. So
Martin Luther nailed his list of demands to the gate of a kibbutz.
Yeah, but it turned out that it wasn't a list of hostages; it was just a calendar. So this is a freak out from Emily Schrader. And this is just like, I love her. If Basil Adra wants his daughter to grow up in a different reality, quote, without violence, he doesn't need to be pontificating to Hollywood about it. He needs to be fighting against Hamas and Islamism within Palestinian society. I just want to point out the beginning of that sentence is, if Basil Adra wants his daughter to grow up in a different reality without violence. You have to love the tone deaf nature, like the way in which they gloss over the first part of the sentence in which you say, like, if you want your daughter who is newly born to not experience violence, how do you talk about a baby that way and try to look like the good guy? Am I crazy? I'm not crazy. That's an insane thing to say about a baby.
This is your brain on Hasbara.
I swear to God.
Well,
I
this
mean,
is
it's
it's the utter contempt for Palestinian life. It's the sheer unbridled hatred and the presumption that they're going to need to earn the world in which they get to grow up
Right.
Period.
You're going to need
They
to
haven't
earn the
earned it
safety
yet.
of a baby.
That's a privilege.
Yeah,
Getting to see your teenage years is a privilege, not a right.
My replies about when I tweeted about the film were like a mix of people being like, this film is fake, nothing in there happened, and also whatever happened to them, they deserve it.
Right.
I mean, that's all. It's like the two-step of Hasbara always, which is
Yeah.
first denial, and then, well, if it's happening, it's their fault,
Right.
not our army, not our settlers.
Not my America. Yeah. She also wrote, also lol at Yuval thinking his political opinions about U.S. foreign policy matter. And furthermore, thinking that sharing his opinions to a crowd of left-wing Hollywood elites is somehow stunning and brave.
I don't know. The Brigade was in that room. It was pretty...
Yeah.
Have we talked about the Brigade yet on this
No,
show?
we haven't. The Brigade, for those of you who don't know, the Hollywood Reporter reported this great story in which they just did PR for this group of people that doesn't matter and it doesn't really exist. Jewish Hollywood protests artists for ceasefire pins after Bibas Body's release. Have you no shame? Love starting this with Jewish Hollywood. You gotta love the way in which it's okay for them to say that because it's the Hollywood Reporter.
And the author's name is Eitan.
Yes. Wessling. Let's see. The Brigade representing some...
May his byline be of Lessing.
Yes, I feel blessed. The Brigade representing some 700 producers, filmmakers, agents, managers, publicists, executives, actors, and actresses is taking issue with a letter encouraging attendees of the 2025 Academy Awards to wear a controversial emblem. I just want to point out the Brigade, which is a group founded by PR, studio executives, and filmmakers in the wake of October 7th Hamas attack, has issued a strongly worded statement. They are all, anonymous. This is a group of 500 completely anonymous.
700.
Oh, is it 700? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
700 producers, filmmakers, agents, managers, publicists, etc., who are all anonymous. That is, how can you be like, have you no shame? And then just be like, well, I guess they do have shame. That's why they're all anonymous. I never thought about it like that before. But yeah, this was them writing a giant letter in which they were trying to get people to not wear this pin. And it was great because what ended up happening was what's his name? Guy Pearce just wore a pin that said "Free Palestine."
Yeah,
and they were like, "No
symbolism whatsoever.
That's worse."
Plain text.
Yeah. So Emily Schrader, wrote this thing, and then right under that, someone who I don't know, Leslie Young, it's just some random blue check mark, probably a bot. Fortunately, distribution of this film is proving a problem. We'll try to keep it that way, and that is a real thing. No other land has won an Oscar without U.S. distribution. Now what? So they still do not have a distributor. Is that right? As of so far?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah.
It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And to continue with this freakout, one of the interesting ones has been the Israeli Minister of Culture and Sports, Mickey Zohar.
With whom you do not mess.
Yes, you don't mess with the Zohar.
Hey, good job.
And he has been on, like, at this point, 3 days of furious tweeting about this film. He wrote, in Hebrew, the Oscar win for the film No Other Country is a sad moment for the world of cinema. Instead of presenting, how is it? Is it a good accent now? Almost there?
I'd give you like a 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of presenting the complexity of our reality, the filmmakers chose to echo narratives that distort Israel's image in the world. Freedom of expression is an important value, but turning the slander of Israel into a tool for international promotion is not creation. It is sabotage of the state of Israel. And after October 7th massacre and the ongoing war, it hurts doubly. Sorry, I don't know why I turned German there.
It was already pretty Yiddish coded.
Was it?
Well, it is turning a little German in some ways,
In a way? the whole state is turning a little German. This is exactly why we passed the film reform. Oh, God, we need to get into what the fuck that is. To ensure that public resources directed to works that speak to the Israeli audience and not to an industry that makes a career out of defaming the country at foreign festivals.
Can you put this on screen?
No, this is me just reading something I copy and pasted.
Fair enough.
And yeah, so he stepped up the attacks on Yuval specifically. This is something that I've seen shared everywhere, which was him yelling at the IDF. This is how they have framed it. So I'll play a little bit of this. This is a tweet from Raylan Givens, not the real Raylan Givens, someone just pretending to be Raylan Givens. Shout out to Justified, great TV show, except for season 5 has Michael Rappaport. Don't watch it. And you see him, you see sort of like a first person view. It looks like a body cam of Yuval yelling at the IDF.
And he's saying, back up, back up.
Yes.
And he's holding a camera of his own.
Yes, and the tweet says, "Must watch. These are the Oscar winners who whine about the quote, the violent quote occupation." I love occupations in quotes. This is what they look like from the other side of the camera attacking IDF soldiers. So they're showing this video. Now it turns out
attacking IDF soldiers.
You see in the video that literally they are yelling and holding cameras.
And literally not touching them.
Not touching them at all whatsoever. If these are
why
the
would
IDF,
they do such a thing? As Will Menaker said on Twitter, what could account for this shocking display of incivility and rage?
Yes.
Those soldiers were just conducting normal operations in what everyone agrees is a closed military zone.
They were just out there trying to listen to psytrance music and do a little bit of, bulldozing.
I have to say, I've been obsessed with these videos.
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally like, this is the best you guys have at this point.
Yeah.
Like, all these accounts that are like, breaking, must watch, like the Pallywood exposed. It's like, wait, this is like kind of a cool video,
right?
And actually kind of affirms the thing that they're saying.
100%. Yes, this is, and the best part about this particular attack, which once again was shared everywhere by the fucking Zohar, the Minister of Culture and Sports. The best part about this is that it's actually not even fucking real. So the account Fake Reporter, who does a lot of great actual reporting, pointed this out. Contrary to claims made by various media networks and activists, a second video of the incident from another angle shows that Oscar-winning director Yuval Abraham is confronting a different citizen who is yelling at a woman, not the security forces, as was reported. So he's not actually even yelling at the IDF. If you see this video right here, there's
probably a settler.
Yeah, he's yelling at a settler who is currently yelling and getting in the face of a woman. And now Yuval is going up to him and telling him to back off, which is literally what he says. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's incredible that they can't even, I mean, certainly there's going to be a video of him yelling at an actual IDF soldier. Why don't you just use that? Why wouldn't it, but they couldn't find one, so they made one up.
I think what's also great about this video is it shows the exact thing that they say is happening on the ground, which is that settlers and the soldiers basically operate as one together.
Right. Team up together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally proving their point. It is, it's incredible. Just to continue in terms of like sort of the depravity, and this one is insane. But like, so there was this fake news that spread around throughout Hasbara Twitter regarding the participation of Chaim Katzman. So Chaim Katzman was an Israeli peace activist who was killed on October 7th. You might remember we had Chaim's sibling Noy Katzman on the show as a guest.
One of my first co-hosting appearances. In fact, maybe my first co-hosting appearance.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And so the Hasbarists are claiming that the filmmakers dishonored him by not mentioning Chaim Katzman in the Oscar speech. This is from a friend of the pod, psychopath Adin. One of the Israelis who helped make the movie No Other Land was murdered by the Palestinians on October 7th, and he wasn't even mentioned. This shit was spread fucking everywhere. Every single fucking Hasbara account, from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter, they were all sharing this picture of Chaim. And Noy and Chaim's mother took to Facebook and said this: yesterday, in a thread in a private group about the Oscar award to No Other Land, I shared that my son, Dr. Chaim Katzman, visited Masfaryata, the village where the documentary was filmed, and included a picture of him. Someone shared the picture on Instagram and included a nasty comment about how Hamas killed peace activists as well. Others used her post and an interview with filmmaker Yuval, in which Chaim is mentioned as someone he knew who was killed on October 7th, to criticize the filmmakers for not mentioning Chaim, quote, who helped make the film, in their speech at the Oscars. This went viral. Some posts have been edited or taken down, but the screenshots are still out there. As far as I know, Chaim was not involved in the making of No Other Land, and there is no need to be outraged on his behalf. And whoever used the picture I shared in a private group without permission to denigrate murdered peace activists, and whoever uses language like, quote, but Hamas killed them anyway, shame on you. And like, this is like, to me, the height of disgusting. This is where you truly see fascism at its core in Zionism, because like the willingness to just spread this picture of someone who was killed on October 7th, a fellow Jew, a fellow countryman, and to use that death to score the pettiest of points about like an Oscar speech not honoring the October 7th dead, is like, it's just a level of putting like land over people that is so disgusting that it's insulting that Israel ever claims to give a shit about Jews. You know what I mean? Yuval
did call October 7th a crime. They should take that win.
Right.
It's also, I mean, the other thing it made me think about, it's like there's also a story that came out of this week that families of the victims of October 7th were like getting beaten up and dragged out of the Knesset this week because they're demanding that there actually be a governmental inquiry into what happened that day. And of course, the government doesn't want to do it because it doesn't want to expose its own failures and its own complicity. And it's just like, there's something so incredibly bleak about the way that victims of October 7th are abused, and their memory is abused by people who don't actually even care about there being like any real accountability within their own society for people who were killed on that day. They don't actually care. They only care about using the memories of these people to justify more violence against Palestinians and more racism and more revenge. And I mean, we don't have to reopen the Bibas story as well, but it's like there is, I mean, just to kind of comment on the group of Hollywood people who are like, how dare people forget that 2 children were killed this year? It's like, you listen to these people and it's like as if no other children have been killed this year. Right. And they are only, and by the way, like also this week, we've seen statements come out from the Bibas family themselves being like, stop making up stories about what is happening to our family. They
literally shut up. Literally shut up, they're saying. Well, at least you don't have Ben Gvir. Oh, you do.
Calling one of the returned hostages Hamas.
Yeah. Saying that Eli Sharabi is spreading Hamas propaganda when he reports that Hamas said to him that, your conditions are contingent on the conditions of our compatriots in Israeli dungeons.
Right. Yeah. It is.
No, no respect whatsoever for their own fallen. And
it's crazy too, because it's like something that I honestly like. I don't know if I felt quite that way, maybe on a theoretical level, but before October 7th, I always felt a little bit like the Israeli citizens themselves and world and Jews of the world were sort of human shields for this, depraved ideology. But I always gave a little bit of, injected a little bit of humanity into it, because I was like, well, of course they care. Of course they care. Like, of course, because who wouldn't care? I mean, of course, it's just like, I'm not trying to dehumanize them to the point of thinking they don't care about their own dead. But then you just like see the absolute commitment to this project. And you go like, no, I truly think they do not care beyond using it as a tool to get more land, to get more soil. Like, it is blood over soil. It's not even blood and soil fascism. It's just blood over soil fascism. Mm-hmm. It's fucking...
Wait, isn't it soil over blood? Because they want the land and they don't care who dies for it.
Sure, but that's right. Yeah. Soil over blood. That's if I had said it right and not been dyslexic, fuck, I would have had a good point. But
we got there together.
We got there. We're stronger together. Our fates are intertwined. But yeah, it's it's like, just watching, especially, with Noy, who was on the show and talking about this. This is something that Noy's had to deal with since it happened. And I just can't imagine that level of like cruelty, to like just glom onto this, like, oh, good. I've got some fresh bullshit that I can push out in order to talk about the fucking Oscars. These petty bitches. This is why I say we need to be more petty, because we got to match this level of pettiness. It's truly insane. Lastly, we're going to talk about the liberal Zionists. My absolute favorite.
They've been in an interesting position lately.
What's that?
They've been in an interesting position lately. It's been really fun to watch.
Yes. So, listen, they're liberals, they're Zionists. Are they liberal Zionists? Who knows? But we do know one thing. They don't know what to feel. So, Blake...
Give it to me.
Blake Flayton, who is someone that I've known about him for a while. I don't know if we've actually like discussed him on the show, but he's he's the kind
of guy we used to devote entire episodes to.
Yes, a young guy. I mean, he's been a young guy forever. He's got to be in his 30s now. No, he's still in his 20s.
I think he's pretty young.
God, he's like been a wunderkind of like child Hasbara for like ever since I've been interested in this, which is, to be fair, only like 10 years. But
Flake Blayton.
Yes. So he wrote, we now have Jewish influencers with hundreds of thousands of followers calling no other land, quote, terrorist propaganda. I am critical of the film as well, but come on, people. Labeling everything as the work of terrorists is why we keep losing arguments. Engage with the issue that the film addresses directly. Do not be afraid to criticize Israel. It strengthens our credibility. We have the winning argument. There's a perspective and there is context missing in the film. You don't need to label every Palestinian as Hamas.
I really want to hear his follow-up to that. I really want to know what do we all know is missing from that film? Have you demonstrate to me that you've actually seen this film?
Right. Yeah.
And then tell me, like, what do we need to know
that
to better understand the justice of the Israeli army trying to turn indigenous Palestinian villages into closed military firing zones and shooting people in the stomach at close range and paralyzing and killing people and pouring concrete into their wells and generally on a daily basis terrorizing people.
Yeah, where's the good part? Right.
So I would guess that the context that maybe he might think is missing is that some version of like they deserve it, our indigeneity matters more, whatever, or there's going to be a two-state solution and we're going to solve all of this, right? Because that's what this camp is also trying to solve. That there's a good Israel that needs to be saved that is not being depicted in this film,
right?
And I think what's pretty rich and delicious. I'm also quite petty, so I've been enjoying watching these accounts, trying to kind of like
reach a middle ground with psychopaths.
Yeah, where they're all of a sudden coming out and being like, guys, we're not Kahanists here. Don't share the genocidal posts and memes. Like that is not what our movement is about. Our movement
is about being really nice.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, there's something like so pathetic. You know, I feel like one of the things that they often say about our side is like, you know, they all want to kill you anyways. Look at you, like useful idiot Jews, like trying to be blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you are in a movement with Kahanists. You are part of a movement that has been backing and supporting a genocide for the last year and a half. And now you're trying to all of a sudden be like, whoa, guys, like, you know, we're not racist against all of them. You know, like we're not about killing them all. We're not about painting them all with one brush. And it's like, yeah, you are. And I'm pretty sure the replies are going to reaffirm.
Oh, yeah. Yes, 100%. Everyone is just mad at him. I just want to read some of my favorites. Flake Flabbyhead is upset that pissed off Jews are ruining his social life. One guy just wrote, Blake Goyton got his ass. And you're right. It's not terrorist propaganda. It's treason. Like, people have just been tearing these guys to shreds because they are trying to now. I mean, here's the thing. They're doing the thing where they're like, guys, come on, we're not like this. Like, let's try to, you know, not.
They're like, guys, we're better than this. And everyone else like, no, we're not.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but you know what? That gives them the opportunity to play. The whole everyone's mad at me, so I must be right.
I must be right. Yes, exactly. And
you know, the pro-Palestinian people hate me, and the Kahanists hate me.
That's how I know.
Must be landing on the exact right spot morally.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you know you're winning.
Yes. And friend of the show, Hen Mazik, did it as well. And Hen's take is Hen's take is the creators of No Other Land did not call for ethnic cleansing.
Correct. They are making a film against ethnic cleansing.
That's right.
Continue.
They did not downplay the violence of October 7th.
I wish they hadn't foregrounded it so much because it's not relevant to the film. But
sure. Were they harsh when they talked about the Israeli government? It depends on who you're asking. Empathy isn't a zero-sum game. It's important
since
to remember.
When, Hen?
Yeah, I know. Since literally when? I feel like Michael Rappaport did this too, but not about the film. He's just like, hey guys, just so you know, like, look, we need to stop being so mad at each other as Jews. Like, we should all be together, and and you know, everyone's got different opinions, and it's not about all Palestinians. It's just Hamas. And literally, since when?
Since Beitar came on the scene, I feel like the emergence of like out and proud and very vocal and obnoxious Kahanists in the discourse is prompting these fuckers to like desperately try to distinguish themselves.
Yeah, try to distance themselves.
A kind of like
them.
Zionist respectability politics.
Yes, which is so funny because they don't realize that the following that they have gained in the past like 16 months has been these psychopaths. And so they're like going around being like, hey guys, what are we doing here? I mean, we're nicer than that. And like Hen gets this response from Chiron Collective. Oh, look, another as a Jew cuck groveling for approval from people who would march him to his own execution with a smile. The creators of No Other Land whitewashed Hamas atrocities, spread blood libel against Israel, and ran PR for terrorists. But sure, let's pretend this is some noble, quote, hard conversation and not outright anti-Israel propaganda. Empathy isn't a zero-sum game. Tell that to the Israeli children burned alive in their own homes. Tell that to the parents shot for tell them from this and that and the other. There's no other land for Palestinians. Damn right there is. It's called Anywhere Else. P.S. You're a bitch. So
sorry, I find this so delicious because actually before I read who wrote that tweet, I still thought that was a Hen Mazik tweet.
Oh, no.
Because that's how that guy also talks sometimes.
Yes.
I mean, he loves to call everyone an as a Jew and say people are I mean, that's the whole thing. Those are his talking points that are now being weaponized against him.
Right.
I mean, he is an Israeli government propagandist. So it's like,
literally,
it's so rich that they're all of a sudden trying to be like,
whoa. Hey, not us.
Right. They're like, hey guys.
It's the beautiful thing about the slope that that these guys are trying to stand on, pretending that it's even. No, it always tilts to the right.
Yes.
And if you're scrambling, trying not to tumble down to the rightward side of it, you're exerting a lot of unnecessary and fruitless energy.
Yeah.
And it's just not authentic, because ultimately the end logic of Zionism is the Jabotinsky argument.
Yes.
He was always the more honest among those leaders. He came out and said it, and you can hear it. There's a kind of relaxation in just coming out and saying, fuck it, we're colonizers.
Yes.
And no colonized people have ever not stubbornly resisted, whether they were civilized or not civilized. He said all this,
It's just like,
stop pretending for the goyim.
It's the dishonesty of it that I think is like, funny to point out, because you just see the exact same weaponized talking points that have been weaponized against, that Hen has weaponized against, people like us, or, fucking anyone else who criticizes Israel. It just flipped right back at them, because these right-wing psychopaths are like, shut up, stop carrying water for, these fucking anti-Semites, anti-Israel people. And it's one of the reasons why I love liberal Zionists. It's just like, they don't have the capacity to accept what their belief system's endpoint is. They don't want to, because it's like it makes them feel like they're bad, and they can't be bad because they're good. You know what I mean?
I do, because I'm actually sitting here thinking right now, like, this is the exact reason why I stopped being a liberal Zionist. Yeah. Because when
100%.
I initially began questioning the things I was seeing, I was like, guys, we must be better than this, right? Like, can we just talk about some of these things? Like, is there space in our community to honestly grapple with these things? And everyone was like, no, absolutely the fuck not.
Why would you think
are an
that?
enemy. Like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
But I guess I just think, like, these two people in particular, I'm like, these are people who are propagandists for the state, who are advocates of what the state is doing.
Yes.
And so I think it is revealing that there is still a stream in Hasbara that is trying to project this image to the world of, like, a moral Israel, a liberal moral Israel that did a liberal moral genocide that wasn't a genocide.
Yes.
But it's very clear to their own followers what this project is actually about, and people don't want to, like, play nice about it anymore. So
right.
It's interesting, like, who are they still doing this for?
Yeah. And I honestly think that, like, a lot of this is just it's scrambling. They're confused, because they're like, okay, wait. If Hollywood is giving an award to this thing, we need to, as liberals, we, for the most part, at least in theory, agree with Hollywood liberalism. All of these, like Blake and Hen, they're 100% like liberal, or at least, on the outside, liberal people who, like, love Westerners. Yeah, exactly. And so, like, they can't do the thing which a lot of these, like, right-wing Zionists have done, which is like, well, whatever, fuck them. They're all, they're all cucks anyways. MAGA. Like, they can't be that, And so, I don't know. I think, like, part of them is going, like, can we stop making this an issue? Because it's embarrassing for us. The fact that can we just ignore that they won an award, and, like, maybe even, be like, hey, at least they didn't go up there and call it piss real, like, we should be grateful for that. But honestly, this is the bed that they've made, and these are their bedfellows. And so you have last thing is, I just want to read. Someone wrote after Sharon Collective's big rant, "Are you serious? Calling Hen Mazig as a Jew? Be for real." And Sharon Collective wrote, also called him a cuck bitch. I just really enjoyed that. Listen, Hen, you are now officially invited on the Bad Hasbara podcast. Please come on, tell us all about, how you've changed, and that, Israel's an apartheid state. I mean, certainly it seems he agrees with that. He agrees that Israel's an apartheid state, that Israel's doing a genocide, right? Seems like it.
A few more. Let's wait a few more a few more award season cycles.
I'm just going to
maybe
go
you'll get
out there and say it. Hen Mezig believes in ending Israel, and he's saying from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free. I didn't say it. He did. And we welcome him to the fold. It's always good to have more allies. And we'll get him on this podcast to say all those things. I'm just kidding. I'm not actually going to invite Hen Mezig on the podcast. Yeah. So anyways, those were all, that's all that. And I think that's been a podcast. What do you guys think?
That's been a podcast.
How come no one answers me fast enough?
I think we did it. I think we did it.
All right. I think it's been a podcast. Simone Zimmerman, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. And thank you for coming to the studio in person.
Honestly, always a pleasure. It's better when we are together.
I agree. So we're better together. And it's I'm going to turn on the air conditioning soon so we can it's also a very, it's a soundproof room, so it's very hot in here right now. Daniel, you've been here. You sweated next to me. You understand.
I'm doing okay, actually.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
I'm kind of a bitch.
You sweated on me, and I haven't washed that part of my body since.
Damn, that's crazy that you haven't. I'm not gonna finish the bit. Simone, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm still on Twitter and I am on Instagram. The handle is Simone R. Zim.
All right. Check out Simone Zimmerman. Great account to follow and great person. Thank you so much for coming on Bad Hasbara.
Thank you again for having me. I love it here.
I love it too. Patreon.com/badhasbara, badhasbara@gmail.com for all your questions, comments, and concerns. All right, everyone. Thanks again so much for listening. And until next time, from the river to the sea.
And the Oscar goes to, for Best In-Person Podcast Guest, Simone Z.
Hey.
Jumping jacks was us. Push-ups was us. Krav Maga us. All karate us. Taking Molly us. Michael Jackson us. Yamaha keyboards us. Jar Jar Binks not us. Andor was us. Heath Ledger Joker us. Endless Breadsticks us.